Greetings, everyone, all earthlings and beyond. Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea. We're here on Let's Talk Radio. It's a paranormal talk radio station, WLTK-DB.com, right behind me there. Whoop, that side, right behind me. Welcome to episode 41, and it is late October, spooky time. So happy spooky time to everybody. Or maybe it's just normal time for some of us out there, but definitely enjoying October. We had a crazy storm up here in Port Gamble, and the whole Northwest, and it was pretty wild yesterday. So very calm evening this evening so far. So I'm thankful for that. But everyone out there, hopefully you made it through all right. Pretty big storm. So we're here on episode 41. And before I bring on my guest, I'm going to talk about some things. Got an exciting announcement for the show that I've added my good friend Michael Beers to the show as a producer and helping behind the scenes. And I've known Michael for quite some time, and he's just a whiz at everything he does. So very big show welcome to Michael Beers as a producer. So thank you, Michael. It's going to be fun working with you, and really appreciate you having you on board here. So just wanted to announce that right off. I'm very excited about that. Excited to work with Mike. So and I've got Ghost Walks Central going on right now. It's especially late October, and we've been having some fun on the tours and great groups and lots of fun spooky stories. So I'm having fun with those. And I also have public investigations starting next month. I think the first one's November 20th. It may almost be sold out, but tickets are $35, and it's 3 hours in the Walker Ames house here in historic Port Gamble. And it's an opportunity to go through the house really thoroughly and kind of investigate along the way, learn about some of the tools and investigation tactics. Those are a lot of fun. I really enjoy those. Giving people an aha moment is pretty awesome when that can happen on the investigations. So those are coming up, and you can get details on all the tours and investigation dates and tickets right up here, portgambleparanormal.com. Check it out. And you can also get to the Port Gamble Ghost Conference page from there, or at portgamble.com under the events tab. So we have our 12th annual Port Gamble Ghost Conference coming up November 5th through 7th. And very excited to find a way to do it as safe as we can. But it's going to be Friday through Sunday. And so if you want to come to the in-person portion of it, it's $45, and you get in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you get to hear all the speakers presentations. And there's also opportunities for classes as well as investigations of many of the local spooky places here in Port Gamble. So it's $45 for the weekend and $30 for a single day pass. But the cool thing is we had so much fun last year doing a virtual conference that we've added a virtual component to the conference this year as well. So if you live far away and you can't get to Port Gamble, check out the virtual option. It's $20, and that's for Friday night, all day Saturday, and Sunday up until about 3 o'clock. So for $20, you get front row seats to all the speaking presentations and the panel discussions for the conference, which I always like to add is my favorite part when everybody gets together. And it's a Q&A. There's 2 different panels. There's a psychic panel and then just a paranormal roundtable discussion. And we'll be also taking questions from the virtual audience too. So you'll be a part of that if you got a virtual ticket. And you just get to hear everyone's perspective, and I think that that's so enlightening. So Port Gamble Ghost Conference coming up. And hey, Katie. Yes, great news about Michael joining as a producer. Looking forward to the show with Joanne. Well, there's our special guest tonight. And before I bring her on, I wanted to mention that next week I've got Paul Graves, who's a Bigfoot and just paranormal researcher. He's also a musician. His band's pretty awesome. I don't know if that's by luck that I keep getting great musicians on the show. um, but anyways, looking forward to having Paul Graves on next week, and he's from Washington State. And then the following episode 43, I've got cryptozoologist Ken Gerhard coming on. So I'm super excited about that. I want to ask him about all the different kinds of mythical creatures he's researched and even seen some evidence of. So really looking forward to that. But then after that, on November 16th, I can't believe it. It's going to be my 1 year anniversary show right here on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. I just feel happy about that. I'm so excited, and I appreciate all the support through this whole year. It's very humbling, and so I'm super excited to be having the 1 year anniversary show on November 16th with my great friends, the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen, and that's going to include Casey Goodwin, Ben Robison, Michael White, and Neil McNeil, and all have been guests on the show. And so I thought, why not? Let's get them all together. We'll be in this virtual room, and we'll see what happens. But hoping to have Q&A and encourage everybody out there to ask questions, and we'll have guided topics in it as well. So that's coming up on November 16th. So don't miss that. That's going to be the 1 year anniversary special, and gosh, I just can't believe that's going to be happening. So I want to thank Todd Bates, station manager, and also the host of Haunted Voices, for all of Todd's support over this last year. And I just continue to learn, and he's a great person to learn from. So big thanks to Todd out there, running things behind the scenes every week. So thanks, Todd. Yeah, so tonight, well, we're getting real close to Halloween, and I think it's just perfect to have this special guest on tonight. And she's somebody who's practiced psychic mediumship all her life since she was a kid. She also started doing palmistry. She's taught herself palmistry as a kid and was doing public readings in her late teens. She's an author. Her book is There's Always a Miracle, True Stories of Life Before and After Death. And she's right near close to Port Gamble. So I think that's so cool to have somebody very close. She comes out of Port Townsend, Washington, which isn't too far. And if you don't know anything about Port Townsend, go Google it, because it's an amazing town. It's one of Washington's oldest towns, just like Port Gamble is. And so there's a lot of history up there, and I imagine this is probably the perfect place for her. But please welcome to the Paranormal Pete Show here on episode 41. This is Joanne Clarkson.
Thank you, Pete. I'm very excited to be here.
All right. There she is. All right. I just think it's cool. Most of my guests are, across the country or on the other side of Puget Sound, but you're pretty close up there in Port Townsend. Tell us what you like about living up in Port Townsend.
Well, mostly it's a really beautiful place, and certainly a spiritual place. We moved from Olympia when we retired, and we have a Brady Bunch family of 5 kids, and everybody is gone and moved out. We had a house that would accommodate that, and we thought everybody didn't need to move home anymore, so we wanted a tiny house in a good place. So actually, I was born and raised in Seattle, and I told Jim, I was born, lived all my life in the rain. I think I want to die in the sun. So we went and looked all over the Southwest, but this is home. And then I came up here, the Unity Church up here until COVID every year had an Into the Mystic psychic reading fair. And although I lived in Olympia, I came up and read for them for 3 years. And when we were driving home from the last time in 2017, we said, I think that's where we need to go. And so after some hunting around, we found the perfect place, and it has not disappointed at all. This is a beautiful spiritual, the energy here is just beautiful all the time.
It is. Oh yeah. I love going up there and just walking around, whether it's at a park or it's, downtown area. It just has a different feel to it there.
It does.
Yeah. And it's super windy, so
oftentimes, not as bad as I thought. We actually live even out at Cape Cape George, which is Cape George faces west out of the peninsula. And so we face toward the straits, but I don't think it's as bad as Olympia sometimes. It's fine. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's right on.
Yeah.
So, I kind of I feel like we're going to have so much to talk about tonight. And the time always flies when we're having fun on this show. So, but you in your bio, you've got that you were practicing your gifts at a really early age. How did you come to, like, or I guess what age and how did you come to figure out, oh, I'm doing something that most people can't?
Well,
And how did you kind of get started with it?
well, my grandmother was a psychic medium, my maternal grandmother, and she actually learned from her father, not her mother. And so the whole family knew how to read cards. They read regular playing cards. My grandma and her three sisters came from Sweden, actually, when they were teenagers, expecting to find handsome, rich husbands in America. Didn't happen. They lived in a boarding house and took in laundry. It was not a good life. But grandma, especially, all the sisters could read cards. They read regular playing cards, but grandma was always the one that was most called to do that. And so she did it kind of casually for friends. And then when her oldest sister bought a millinery shop, this is way back, like 19 teens.
Okay.
Grandma read fortunes in the back room of the millinery shop. So anyway, so as I was growing up, she did it kind of professionally for a while, and then kind of, it wasn't, how should I say, it wasn't as easy to be a psychic medium back then. And she was kind of a private person, but she would receive messages for people or do private readings. And then when I was a young child in the 50s, on Halloween and Christmas, whatever, everybody sat around and had their fortune told. I didn't realize that all families didn't sit around on Thanksgiving.
You thought that was the norm.
Tell each other what was coming up to the, so and so I caught on to that, and I really felt called to it. Oddly enough, out of all of the cousins and everybody, I'm the only one that continued it or seemed to have any interest at all. But I did that. They told, like I said, playing cards, and I did that for actually for friends and stuff when I was quite young. And then I decided I don't even know why I picked palmistry, or I guess I'm an Aquarian, which always wants to be original. But when I was about 12, I took the bus downtown, the public transit, and checked out every book in the downtown Seattle Public Library on palmistry that I could find. I taught myself to read palms. And I find, I still love palmistry because it is so very personal. And then as things evolved, I didn't know there were tarot cards when I was little, and I discovered them maybe in my late teens, early 20s. Okay. And I liked them better. When you do playing cards, at least the way my grandma told, all the spades are negative. So if you lay out a fortune, you got a 25% chance of, and I prefer, how should I say, when there's a challenge in someone's life, you want to point it out to them. Or when things are coming that you think might be a little challenging, you need to tell people to get ready, and then hopefully point out ways that they can deal with this. Mm-hmm. But that having been said, usually for me, it's much more productive to point out to people their strengths, their talents, where they should be going, and to affirm that, because it's weird how many people deny their talents out of some sort of sense of false humility. And we'll get to that with your palm too.
Oh, no.
Although I think you're manifesting your talents pretty well, is what I think from looking at your palm. But anyway, but with the palm, people's hands, you don't realize until you really study them how really glaringly unique each person's hands are.
Right.
And how much they tell about somebody. And I always try when I read a palm to give somebody some symbol in their hand that shows them how truly remarkable they are and how the world really needs their talents and energies. And then sometimes with a pen, I just mark that on there. So if they ever are having a bad day where they feel like, and I said, yes, look at that. And you will know it's written on your hand. I've got to honor that. So that's fun. So actually, and I just did it. It never occurred to me that I had a gift. It was just something that I thought was fun to do, and I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
throw into this mix, though, the fact that as I was younger too, our family went. There's a lot of people very close to me that passed away when I was a child. My sister had died actually shortly before I was born, and that was always, how should I say, it was always present in the family. And then my father died when I was 10. And then my beloved my grandparents, my psychic grandma and her husband lived very near us and were very involved in our family. And he died in a terrible car accident when I was 14. And so we'd been through all of this really intense period of people crossing over.
Yeah.
We were Catholic, very Catholic, and I had a pretty good experience with Catholicism as a child. My parents were very involved in the church, and my dad died of cancer, which was a somewhat lengthy, went over a period of months, and everyone was very supportive and loving toward us. And I had no doubt that my father was crossing into something beautiful and wonderful. Nobody said a lot about harps and angels and stuff, fortunately. It was more like the beautiful energy thing that I believe in now. But after my father did pass, like I said, I was 10 years old, I really felt his presence for a couple of months. Every night, my mom would shut the door, but the hall light would be on. And the light underneath my door, I would see a pair of feet, like shadows of feet come. And then my dad would come and like tuck me in or kiss me goodnight and then disappear. And so I never thought it was really weird that people from the other side came back. So I was very fortunate, I think, to have these experiences. So I was always open. I never, and like so many psychics that I talked to here, the people said, don't manifest your gifts, don't talk about it. Everybody talked about it all the time in my family. So, I just felt like it evolved. However, to share things in public is a whole different story.
Yes.
My mom remarried when I was 18. Really great guy. She was a teacher. He was a grade school principal, but he was a very conservative sort of person. And I was astonished when I was that he asked me. He always had a big party at the end of the year for the teachers in his school over at his house, our house, which is a beautiful home. And he asked me, he said he would pay me if I would read everybody's palm at his teacher's. I was so surprised. I didn't even really know that he knew I did that. Being a really cool experience because I could really, you can do it pretty quick once you get in. You look at a palm, I can pick out a couple of things and tell people about this, and or even draw a couple cards or whatever, and it's fun. And ever since then, I've felt real comfortable doing parties and so anyway, and of course I've emphasized this skill at different times in my life.
Sure.
When I was a young mother, I didn't have much time to do that, and I've always worked full time at another sort of job. So
yeah, I think it's so cool that it was just such a normal thing. Like, kids start out with an open mind.
They do.
But then, especially when you get to your teens, it's very formative years, and oftentimes you can shut that off, or, just by going with what everyone tells you or what society tells you. But you kind of had that, it was just kind of so normal in your family that it's like you were able to keep that open mind, and then that open mind grew, is what it sounds like. So I think it's very nice that you had that kind of support thing, system, or just that it was such a normal thing to do.
I was very, very fortunate in that. So, I've never felt uncomfortable doing that.
Yeah. And so you said you're not quite sure what drew you to palmistry, but wanting to be original. Did your grandmother do any of that, or was that totally different from what you were used to doing?
That's right. She just did cards, and she did direct mediumship too. I should say, I just had an interesting discussion over the weekend with another psychic who asked me why I felt I needed to use palms and cards to tell fortunes. And I said, well, I don't feel I need to necessarily. She just holds someone's hands and gets all these revelations about people and stuff. I guess for me, it's very comfortable to be anchored in something. And to show people, I'm not just, because a lot of it is I'm just getting messages from the other side, but I can show them kind of how it works, and and it's I like to think of it more as a tool than a crutch. And it's not that I don't receive um, direct messages for people, because I do. And
Right.
do we need to take a break? There's a little, because I want to
Oh,
talk.
you can finish your thought. Finish your thought.
I'm gonna. Since I retired, I was a librarian for many years, and then I want to talk a little bit. I re-careered as a hospice nurse and did that for about 15 years. And that's where a couple of my really good stories come from, that I want to be sure we got to tell these ghost stories because it's Halloween.
That's right.
But since I retired and can do this more full time and give a little bit more energy to it, um, I've done more direct mediumship, talking to dead people in various ways for their loved ones. Or I think what people don't realize sometimes is a true psychic medium doesn't work for the living, they work for the dead. So you open yourself, really, you open
I love
yourself
it.
and you say, is there anybody out there with a message? I'm open. I would be glad to, and then you wait and see kind of who comes through. And I know what I was starting to think about, though. My grandma was a wonderful person and a gifted person, but she was a very unhappy person.
Okay.
Partly because she would receive messages for people that were negative. She received a lot of negative. And what good does it tell, oh, you're going to get divorced next year? No one wants to know that.
Right.
Or you're going to break your arm next week. I mean, if there's nothing you can do about it, why in the world do you want to worry about that? And she would worry constantly about our family, and so I told the universe, literally, and then she tried to commit suicide. She had some very intense thing, couldn't sleep. And so I did tell the universe that if I was going to do this work, I didn't want to do it that way. I didn't want horrible negative messages about people. I wanted positive things. I wanted things pretty much that would make people have a richer, more beautiful, more productive, and happy life. And that's pretty much the way it's worked out. You can tell the universe what you want.
Oh, well, let's get more into that after we take a quick station break here. That's amazing. We're here on Let's Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, on the Paranormal Pete Show with special guest Joanne Clarkson. And we're so happy to have her. We're going to get into a lot more when we come back on the other side of the break. We'll see you in a second.
We are living in rapidly changing times that can leave you wondering what steps to take next. Let Christina Bloom, spiritual advisor, help you find the clarity you need to move forward with confidence. Christina is a psychic with more than 20 years of experience in spiritual guidance and mediumship. She can help you find the answers when you have important decisions to make. In addition, she also facilitates past and other life explorations and soul retrievals. For more information on Christina's services, as well as her extensive list of classes, please visit her website at ChristinaBloom.com. That's ChristinaBloom.com. To make an appointment or to book Christina now, send her an email, Christina@ChristinaBloom.com. That's Christina@ChristinaBloom.com.
Right. Welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Peter Orbea, and we're speaking tonight with Joanne Clarkson, Joanne the Psychic. And you can go to joannethePsychic.com if you want to learn more about her services and offerings. So definitely go check that out. That's www.joannethePsychic.com. And welcome back to the show. So before the break, you were talking about your grandmother, she was very gifted but very unhappy, and in the negative things that she would feel and sense and read for people kind of really got to her. But instead you told the universe that you didn't want it to go that way. What makes you, has everything, it sounds like you've really just taken a real positive direction with your work. You mentioned earlier, finding the things that can affirm people's talents and and can encourage them in their life. What, how did you know the universe heard you? I guess.
Well, one thing I was thinking about during the break that I wanted to bring up partly is that I do have spirit guides. We all have angels and spirit guides, but over time, I have about 12 that I know are with me all the time, and they help. They're all dead, people. And at first, I had some that just like more famous people that I didn't know personally, but now pretty much all of them are someone that has touched me even briefly sometime in my life. And they help sort these things out too. And it isn't that I never get negative messages or don't know. Obviously, through this past couple of years, before we even had COVID, late in 2019, all the psychics, including me, were getting these messages. Something really, really not good is coming. We need to do everything we can to stay positive, because there's something that's really, really. And we were also going through I was a health challenge with my husband, so I had a lot of personal things that were very worrisome. And so it wasn't that I didn't know these things were coming or didn't know that, it's not
Something
that
was coming.
Yeah. And I do get messages that I should or shouldn't do things, or that other people shouldn't do things, actually.
Yeah.
And usually they come in some sort of an image that hopefully can really help people understand what the universe is trying to
yeah. I can totally relate to you on that. And have you noticed in your work, or at least it's something that I have kind of learned is kind of part of the process with communicating with someone who's crossed over, is if you're doing a reading for a client or somebody, and one of their guides is not happy with the direction they're going with something, or that often comes out pretty fast. Like one of the first things they'll say is something that they're not happy with. And so have you noticed that too?
Yes. Well, usually there's an urgency about it. If things are going along fine, I mean, they can tell you you're doing good. But it's really usually when something is not fine that often has to do with relationships too. I found, of course, I get a lot of women coming to me. Well, men too, but people coming to talk about relationships. And oftentimes they come because they're in a negative relationship and they want me to say, oh no, it's going to be all right.
And yeah, you can't spin it, that's not your job to spin and interpret what they're doing.
No. And also, a psychic medium, the one thing my grandma taught me that's the most valuable thing of all, and I've heard it repeated by all the famous psychics, James Van Praagh, John Edwards, John Hall, and all those people talk about. A medium is a medium. Things come through me. So when I'm sitting in my power with someone, I am not saying what Joanne the normal person, Joanne the nurse, Joanne the mother, Joanne the wife, Joanne, I am saying only what the universe tells me to say. And over time, I've developed a really good tell that just came to me out of the universe. But when I start, if I ever say something that is just what I think and not what the universe wants me to convey, I literally get flicked. Like it flicks somebody, like when my kids were wiggling. It's always on my right side of my upper arm. I get a flick, and I know need to backtrack because I didn't say what the universe wanted to say. I said either what I thought either what the person wanted to hear or what I thought from something else. But what I think has nothing to do with what I tell people. Nothing. And over time, I've gotten better and better. That's the hardest part of being a medium. The very hardest part is to stay clear, stay clear, stay clear.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And I've heard, that sort of thing, staying clear of you is another, I think other people put it as letting go of your ego.
Yes.
Letting go of that, of this is what I think it says, not this is what it says.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. That's and now how to, I know it can get pretty awkward in a reading if there is something or at least within yourself, you feel like,
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
what are, what's a couple of times, you don't have to say any details or anything, but where you just had that moment of, I'm supposed to say this, but it's going to sound really bad. How do you kind of handle a situation like that with someone?
Well, not too long ago, a person came for a reading that told me that they were married and all that, but they felt very attracted to a coworker, and they were thinking of having an affair. What did the universe think about that?
Oof.
Well, so that's another reason it's good to lay out the cards objectively. So I said, well, we'll ask the universe, we'll draw a couple of cards, and you and I will both look at them and see what it thinks. And clearly, the universe gave a green light to this. The universe said that this relationship was supposed to take place.
Wow.
And so it isn't mine to judge whether it's a moral thing to
Yeah.
do or even a wise thing to do. But clearly, and then the person went on to reveal a few more details about what was going on. People never really tell you what they want to know. They start with the broadest generalization.
Yeah.
Then you get down to what they're really, and so oftentimes that happens too. We get a few things that said, well, the universe thinks you're, maybe we need a little more information here. That this is really about this, and so.
Yeah.
How should I say? So, but sometimes you get an answer that's pretty clear that,
this is what it is.
what it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've had a couple, times where I was like, gosh, I better just say it,
Yeah, you better just say it. You have
I
to
better just say it because it was said to me, so I need to pass it along. That's what I'm here for. I just realize it that is probably, really hard part for any medium is dealing with that. So
another person came recently. I'm trying to think, wondering about a job. They wanted to leave their current job and they had a number of possibilities, and I could clearly see, and partly you're reading the person too. I mean, the universe is telling you, but the job this person was, I said, this job in this city, the reason that job seems attractive is because it's going to feed your ego. You'd be a great big deal. But is that the job that would make the best use of your gifts, really, truly? And if it isn't, then long term, you're not going to be happy with it. Even if it seems like more money, more glitz, more, where is it going to go ultimately? So something a psychic can do, I think, is help people see long term.
Right.
Predict the future in a way.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you're getting from the other side, and because I think not everybody on the other side can predict the future, quote unquote,
Right.
but they may have some insights. And so it just kind of depends on how developed they are on the other side and what they can do, and then it's just up to us, like we're talking about, to just pass along what comes through.
Right.
I think that's so cool. So you mentioned working in hospice for 15 years.
Yeah, about that. Hospice and home health. I probably did hospice itself for more like, if I just did hospice for 7 years, and I've done hospice and some other things too.
Yeah, that's a long time though.
It is.
I'm always interested to hear what people's experience is working in hospice or in health end of life care. What was your first, like, holy smokes, what just happened sort of, experience with that?
Well, I should say first, I wanted to be a nurse because, like I said, a lot of people died in my family, and so
Yeah.
I went to college on a nursing scholarship actually, and I did fine with the coursework, but once I got to the hospital, I couldn't do it. I cried every day. I just had my heart, it's too emotional. I was too close to it. So I ended up getting a master's degree in library science and being a librarian for 20 some years, which was a good job. I found information, it was a fine job, but I never felt it was what I was really, really supposed to do. So I took care of this is kind of a ghost story. I took care of my mama through a long illness till she passed. And by then, Jim and I had gotten married. And so I told my mama left me just a little bit of money. And I said, we're not going to buy a new refrigerator. We're going to take a fun trip. So neither of us had been to the Southwest, and we'd heard that was kind of a spiritual place. So we went to, started in Santa Fe, went to that area. I won't go through the whole thing, but basically I was very unhappy. My mother and I were very close. It had been a long haul, and I actually saw her cross over. I saw my father and my stepfather and come and get her and cross over. And that's a whole other kind of story. And so it was very emotional. One of my daughters was driving me nuts. I didn't really like my job anymore. I just felt like I was a mess. And so the first thing that happened, the first night we were there, a loud voice in my head told me to find a cliff and throw everything was bothering me over the edge. So we found a sacred keep up a mountain. I went there and I threw everything over. And we had a wonderful time. New Mexico is truly the land of enchantment. But anyway, so we're driving back to the airport after about 10 days. And just before we got to the Sunport, this was in 1999. There was a big nursing shortage going on then, and there was a huge bulletin board that said, billboard that said, become a nurse today. And I told Jim, we're going to go back and I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to nursing school. And I said, I think I'm going to do hospice. And he was kind of like, oh my God. He had a very good, very secure job. And then he was in law enforcement. And his other comment was, well, that's shift work too. And great. Christmas. But it turned out great, and everything absolutely fell into place. I was late applying, but I managed to get into nursing school. Everything went perfectly. There was a lovely hospice agency. I started out we live in Aberdeen, so I went to Grays Harbor. I went to Harbor's Home Health and Hospice and told them I really wanted to work for them when I got done. So I had to work for a year or so in a hospital, so I knew how to do everything.
Right.
But then I did work for them, and it was a beautiful thing.
Oh,
and I felt very comfortable having been close to dead people at an early age, and then just feeling comfortable with the process. Even with my mother, I felt I could do that. It's not something everybody. Well, although I was going to school with a lot of girls that graduated with my daughter, and they all wanted to be helicopter rescue nurses, I wanted to be, they thought I was crazy, but so they did. And then the reason I called my book "There's Always a Miracle" is that's one thing I told my families, that there will be a miracle. There'll be a miracle. This is really hard and really sad and heartbreaking, but it is what it is, and there will be a miracle. So you just watch. And when you put that in their head, they were all excited to tell me about all the little miracles, and there always were some.
Oh.
And so, that's what that book is kind of about, some of my personal experiences and some of the really extraordinary experiences. And so, why don't I tell you a story? Can I tell you a story?
Oh, yeah, bring it on.
I want to tell you a ghost story, because I want to forget this one, because I've experienced dead people. I've experienced weird things. I've experienced weird things, weird places. But once I actually experienced a ghost.
Okay.
So I had this patient, and she lived kind of out in the country. She lived out by a lake. I won't tell you exactly where it is, but it was out in a lake and kind of remote. And she was a nice lady. She was dying of kidney failure, which is actually a pretty good way to die, because it's not usually painful. People just go to sleep, and they sleep more and more, and they just kind of drift away. And that's what that lady was doing. But she'd been a widow for 10 years. Her husband had been gone for 10 years, and she had two daughters. One lived in Seattle and one lived in Spokane, and they were both attorneys. One was a criminal defense attorney and one was a corporate attorney, both very successful women, but they couldn't stand each other. And so they were never there at the same time. They'd take turns, one would be there for 2 weeks, and then would be. So I'd met the one from Seattle several times, but I'd never met her sister. So I drove out, and it's a beautiful setting there. Obviously, these people, the husband had actually been a judge, and they had a lot of money. So they built this house overlooking this lake, and it was a beautiful drive. So I got there, and I went and knocked on the door. And this is the daughter I hadn't met came to the door. And I was kind of taken aback because she was a mess. Obviously, she was an attractive person, but her hair was all in disarray. She had circles under her. She just really looked terrible. And so my thought was, I didn't expect a problem with the patient. And I said, and I didn't want to tell her she didn't look good. I said, is your mother agitated, or is there a problem with your mother? And she said, no, my mother is fine. So we went to the room and I checked out her mother, who wasn't dead. Her mother woke up a little bit, acknowledges I was there. She was fine. I did all the checks and she was comfortable. And we had a sheet there that, obviously they were providing excellent care and everything. Mm-hmm. And so when I assured that, I said to the daughter, I said, would you like to talk a little bit? Because I was thinking this lady needs respite care. We need to send a volunteer out or somebody. So she said, yes, I would like to talk. So we went and we were sitting at this couch overlooking this lake. And this house is just full of antiques and beautiful artwork. And the mother had been very artistic. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing she'd gotten to express in the last few years was a lot of her art. So anyway, I'm talking to this daughter and I said, well, to me, you look like you're a little bit upset. And she said, I said, I said, is it grief over your mother's passing? And she said, no, it's my father. I'm thinking, your father? What? I'm thinking, did I mix this person up with somebody else?
Right.
I said, your father? And she says, yes. She says, he's up all night long. He's not walking up and down the halls. In fact, he isn't just walking down the halls. He's stomping down the halls. Last night, he was stomping so loud in the hall, the pictures fell off the wall. And I'm thinking, this lady is crazy. That's what. This was a very remote area, and I'm thinking this is not a good situation at all. I'm here alone with this lady who's obviously distraught. And so I said, well, when she first said, I said, I thought your father was dead. And she said, oh yeah, he's been dead 10 years. Best thing that ever happened to any of us. That he's really mad that mother is taking so long to die. So I said, okay. So you think your father is, especially at night, he does all sorts of things. So she was describing all these things. And the more she talked, the more agitated she was getting. And the more I really, really thought this lady had become unhinged and probably the situation wasn't safe for the patient.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I looked across the room and there was it was a wood rocking chair and it was carved. I'd seen it before when I came. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting across the room and all of a sudden this rocking chair starts moving. And it isn't moving a little bit. It is going like mad, just going like this. And I look, nothing else in the room is moving. The curtains are perfectly still. There isn't any wind outside. This thing is going crazy. There's nothing attached to it. She's not, which is, there he is. See, that's the kind of stuff he does. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that is. And so I was trying to think, what else could we do about this? So the one thing I remembered is that you can tell spirits, especially negative spirits, to go away. So I told her, I said, I want you to stand up to your father. Go stand in front of that rocking chair and tell him to go away and get out of here. So she did. She got up and she went. I mean, I almost felt like laughing. It was so comical. There was standing in front of this rocking chair and she said really loud, get out of here and go away and don't you dare come back. And the thing stopped on a dime. It just stopped dead. And then she came and she sat back down and she told me her whole life story about how her father had been domineering and had forced her and her sister to become attorneys because he was an attorney. He always controlled his wife. She said the best 10 years of her life have been the last 10 years. She even had a nice relationship with a man. She could express her art. And so I'm thinking, well, I still need to get somebody out here. I need to call a social worker and probably a chaplain. And I asked her if she'd like to see someone and she said yes. But so I'm driving back to the office and I'm thinking, how am I going to tell, even if I'm kind of careful who I pick, how on earth am I going to tell these people what happened? They'll think I'm crazy. And I was just calling in the lot back at work and my cell phone rang and it was that lady and said, my mother just died. She just passed. So it was like, wow.
Whoa.
That was a real spirit manifestation. That was crazy.
Yeah, and the thing is just rocking like crazy. That's you usually hear stories of, it's kind of moving. Or
no, but this was moving like mad. There was I wasn't imagining that it moved or it moved a little inch. No, this was going crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you get did you feel it in there? The times that you'd been there to see the mother and to check on her, and especially this time, were you feeling any energies, within the home, or were you feeling anything off of the daughter and like how distraught she was? Like, how did you?
Well,
How were you feeling?
the other daughter wasn't distraught. The other daughter, the one from Seattle, had been a very put together person, and obviously she didn't seem to attract the father, or at least she didn't sense his presence. I hadn't had that patient a whole long time. I'd been out of there maybe 3 or 4 times before this time, so it wasn't a family that I saw every day. And since the mother was doing quite well, it wasn't something, and there was no specific thing I had. Like a lot of hospice say, you're changing pumps, you're dressing wounds, you're constantly changing medications for comfort, that kind of thing. So you're there several times a week. But this one, no, I just came once a week because she was pretty much fine. And the other daughter from Seattle seemed fine. It was just this one that was very much affected by the situation.
Yeah. And, so do you, when you pick up stuff, from the other side or your spirit guides, are you feeling it somehow? One of the things I was trying and share with people is everybody has a physical tell when energy is around. So like, when you're picking up stuff, are you feeling it, or do you just know it? Kind of, what does it feel like to you when something's coming in psychically?
For me, it usually happens really, really fast. And I'm more clairaudient than I am clairvoyant.
Oh, that's cool.
So usually I hear messages in my head, or sometimes I see words. I hear voices. And sometimes it's at the most unexpected time. Now, when a spirit appears, like, I'll tell you something that happened kind of recently. I had asked, and like I said, you can ask I hadn't done any, I felt, I guess, that there was some sort of a spirit that wanted to communicate, and I wasn't getting anything. So I was out actually working in my yard. And so I just said, well, I was out there digging in the garden. I said, okay, if anybody has a message, I'm open. And I got a message. I worked with a lot of adult family homes. There's some beautiful adult family homes in Olympia. It's families that take in sick people. They can be dying or not, but a lot of them eventually, obviously, they get to the point of hospice. And I worked in this one home that had the nicest young woman who managed it. She didn't own it, but she managed. She was a sweetheart. And I told her over and over she should go to nursing school because she didn't make very much money. She was very gifted. And I hadn't heard from her for a long, long time. But we had a patient there that was the sweetest elderly man, but mostly he just slept or appeared to be sleeping. He was a funny guy. And at the end, toward the end of his life, it ended up really weird. His family, his son died and couldn't take care of him. He got too much for the adult family home, kind of. And then and these places are not cheap. And the daughter was supposed to be paying his way, didn't pay. So actually that young woman took him home.
Oh,
no.
Wow.
It was very strange. And this was years ago. This was a long time ago, about 10 years ago, and at least. And all of a sudden in my head, I got a picture of him in his recliner. And he was very soft-spoken. And they call him Gotti. That was short for his last name. He didn't care if I use his name. And he said, I want you to tell Rachel she was the kindest person I ever met.
Wow.
Sorry. It's very emotional. And I thought, wow, I hadn't talked to Rachel for years. I hadn't even thought of this man for years and years. But and he repeated it. Rachel is the kindest person I ever met. And so I thought, I got to find Rachel. So where do you find everybody these days? You look on Facebook, right?
Yeah, right.
So I looked on Facebook and I found this person. And so I typed her a little message and I said, do you remember this? Hi, remember me? I'm Joanne. And do you remember this patient? And I said, he wanted me to give you this message. And so she wrote me right back and said, yes, Joanne, I'm in nursing school. I'm going to graduate soon. I still have times though. She says, when I feel like I'm not worthy and I can't do it. And this message means so very, very much to me. It's going to give me the whatever I need to finish. And I told her the reason that you need to be a nurse is because I said, you probably are. You're one of the kindest people I ever met. She was kind to everybody and so gentle and sweet. And all healthcare professionals are not like that.
Yeah.
But she needed to hear from him and to hear that beautiful message. And I just felt very honored that I could deliver that and that would give her the confidence she needed. I said, you're going to be a blessing to so many people, kiddo. Just keep going. Nursing school isn't easy, but you can do it.
Wow. And it's so cool that he knew you'd hear it. He knew you'd pass it along, and that's why he told you. And especially since you hadn't even thought about him or her in years, but it was the time for him to say that, or he took that long to find you or something. But wow,
I wasn't even his hospice nurse at the end, because after she took him home, she lived in Tenino, not Olympia, and so he was out of my jurisdiction. So another nurse had him for hospice at the end. So I just had him when he was, and didn't know him real well even, but I recognized his little soft voice, and I could see him in that recliner with this little Afghan.
Yeah.
So it's amazing sometimes the messages you get kind of unexpectedly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You never quite know what's going to happen. And
in the garden, sometimes you sit there for a long time and think, well, I've gotten better at getting something at will.
Okay.
Getting something for people.
Yeah.
And here's one. Like a friend wanted to contact her brother because his death had been a little. He was alone when he died, and nobody really knew exactly what happened.
Okay.
Just say. And so she wanted to know that he was all right, I guess, and it was all right. And so I didn't just get anything directly. I'd met this person maybe before, the dead person, but I didn't know him well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know that person real well. And so I thought, well, I said, I feel like we're supposed to just lay out some cards. So usually I have a deck. I use the John Holland psychic deck when I'm going to talk to dead people and use cards. So I said to her too, I said, you look for images too. We'll both look for images because I know the meaning of the cards. But and we got about to the third card, and all of a sudden the person, the little angel figure, had on green shoes. And and she says, "Oh my God, green shoes!" I mean, this suddenly made everything totally clear. Okay.
And you're like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah, right. But it answered her question completely, and then she went on and kind of a long story. But so sometimes you don't even know, and that's also why I like to use the beautiful tarot cards, because the images sometimes evoke things in people that I wouldn't even know, or else give us points for discussion.
Yeah, I find I have a steampunk tarot deck, and it's true with the imagery. I think it really helps, even if you're someone who learns by listening. Imagery is still probably the most efficient communication, for anybody. I mean, that's my opinion, but it really does help, I think. And so what I'm curious, what was it about the green shoes that made it all clear to her?
Well, he had actually died in a hiking accident, and he was wearing his favorite shoes, and because of she was sure that it was not intentional.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
Yeah.
I can see the impact that when you're bringing these memories up and talking about them. Isn't it interesting how we try and separate ourselves from the situation when you're doing a reading, but you still get hang on to those emotions, I guess. Some of the
Yeah,
emotions that come through. I
it's
mean,
very
how
emotional. Well, especially, I guess, death. That's a very emotional. People don't care. When I did hospice, I knew I was going to cry. You cannot cry, but
yeah.
people appreciated that. You're too clinical and too removed. It doesn't work. You gotta, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I try not to. I couldn't totally come apart. I had to do the job and get that done. But
But you still had to, be human. You still had to be human about the
they like
situation.
that, and to let them know that I knew how hard it was.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing.
And sometimes the universe. Can I tell you another story?
Yeah. Oh, bring them on,
Do we have
Joanne.
to
Bring
break?
them on.
Are we going to break at 9 o'clock? Or
Nope,
no.
9:20
Okay.
or
Good.
20 after. Yep.
Another thing the universe uses you for various things. Okay. And this is the first time I totally felt that I was part of the universe's manifestation. It was when I was working back at Harbor's Home Health and Hospice. It was it was in November though, because it was dark at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
We'd already gone back to standard time. Well, usually we came back to the office at the end of the day and put in stuff to finish charting and get the stuff for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there, and I was the last one in the office. And the lady that answered the phone was still there. And she came and said, I really hate to ask you this. I know it's after 5, but we just admitted a new patient today, and her family still has a whole lot of questions about the medications that I really couldn't answer over the phone. Seems to me that this lady is on your way home. Would you mind just stopping by? And I said, no, that's fine. I don't mind at all. We haven't had time to put all this. The nurse didn't upload the admit. I just have the stuff out of the computer that I gave her. So here's the address. Here's the people's name. The lady's name is Virginia. She lived over in a bunch of houses that they were 55 and older community. And
Okay.
I'd been there before for both home health and hospice patients. So that was fine. And so I took this and I headed out, and it was a very dark, stormy night.
Like all good stories start out. Yeah.
It was. And so I got there and I drove around a little bit. It's kind of an odd community because it wasn't laid out very well. It had grown over time. And I'd never been to the specific street before that this lady was on, but I drove there, and actually the light was on outside, so I figured that was it. And I said the lady's name was Virginia, so I got out of the car, took my nursing stuff, and went and knocked on the door. And nobody answered right away, which struck me as odd because they just called. But this is about 20 minutes. So I knocked on the door again. And so the door was opened, and quite an elderly man and like a middle-aged woman were standing there. And I said, hi, I'm Joanne from Hospice. And I couldn't decide whether to say your wife or so I said, I'm here to see Virginia. And they just stared at me. And I said, do you have a person, Virginia, who was admitted to hospice? And they said, the lady said, yes, my mother's name was Virginia. And no, she said, my mother is dead. And so I thought, oh my God, the patient just died. It sounded like the patient was actually doing pretty well. And so I said to her, I said, did she just die? She said, no, she died a while ago. She said she had hospice, but she's dead. What? And I said, so you didn't just call hospice and ask for a visit? And they said, no. And it was pouring rain. It said, why don't you come in and we'll sort this out? Because I showed them the paper. It was their mother, and their mother's name was their address. So I come in and I walk into the living room, and there's a coffee table. And it's got photos on it and candles and all these books by people like Sylvia Brown. And so the man said, and my wife, Virginia, she said, she didn't just die a while ago. She died exactly a year ago today.
Oh.
And they said, and we did have hospice. You guys did a great job. He said, and then so I sat down, and I said I could stay a few minutes before I pick her up. And they said, no, they said to me, I think you are our answer.
You're like, okay.
My mother was a very spiritual person, they said, and she believed in angels and everything. And when she died, she told us that she would tell us that she had crossed over and she was fine. And so today we hadn't heard from her. And so today on the anniversary, I took the day off and came over here to be with my dad. And found all these pictures of her throughout her life, and we lit candles, and we just prayed all day for a sign.
Wow.
And I believe that you are the sign.
Oh.
So I said, wow, yeah, this is really, so I called the lady back. She was still there. And I said, this Virginia's dead. It was really the weirdest part though. And so she gave me the leather lady lived about 2 streets down, and she had a different last name, obviously different address. Her name was Virginia though. But she said the weird thing, Joanne, she said she looked up the house where I was. She says that address isn't in the computer anymore. She said that was before we got the new system. All those files were deleted. Just how on earth you got that, friend? I have no idea.
Whoa. Well, even if you could say it's an accident, it was a good accident to get that address.
Yep, it was. So I was the sign that she had sent that said that she had crossed over, and she was all right. And I went on and found the right house and straightened them out easily.
Yeah.
But that was so weird.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I guess you could say the universe does use you in certain ways.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Other experiences like that too. It's like, okay.
Wow. And I'll just drop a reminder here. We're on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. It's the Paranormal Pete Show, and we're on tonight with Joanne the Psychic, Joanne Clarkson. And I want to encourage people out there, if you've had go ahead and comment, say, hey, we'll give you a shout out. And, but if you've had, an experience where maybe the universe used you, if you can briefly just type it in a couple sentences somehow. I know it's hard to get everything short, but I'd love to hear it and love to see it. So if you had an experience where you felt the universe used you, or if you've had an experience, maybe you worked in hospice, someone listening out there, and had something similar, just tell us what it was like for you, and I'd love for you to join the conversation. So don't forget to join the chat on the station, WLTK-DB.com, or comment from wherever you're watching us from this evening. I think it sounds like you've just had some different experiences than most, I would say, even, than a lot of mediums. So I think that's pretty awesome.
It is awesome. I felt very blessed to have been able to do hospice care.
Yeah.
Really, people that choose that, the caregiver, people that take care, are very brave, loving people.
Yeah.
Taking care of someone that's passing away.
Yeah. Like you mentioned with nursing school, and you just couldn't handle it. I think I would be the same way. I just could not. I'd be a mess, I think, the whole time, and not actually able to work or help people. I would just be a mess.
But I could do it when I was older. After I got older and I understood, and then you have the tasks at hand, the things that you do, and then I totally felt called. I felt that I was absolutely 100% called to do this, and so I always felt that I had my guides and spirits around me that would help us solve this. And then I worked for a wonderful agency, especially at first. I worked for Hospice Home Health and Hospice. In fact, Hospice Home Health and Hospice down in Hoquiam was where its headquarters were. It was founded by Dee Thorpe and her husband. They had a caregiving agency and then the home health and hospice, and Dee ran the home health and her husband ran the caregiving. And Dee was a wonderful, beautiful, very inspiring woman. When I worked there, I didn't deal with her day to day very much because she ran the whole thing, and I was out there just doing my thing. But I always knew she liked me, and I liked her very much. It's not easy to run in. There's so much red tape. Oh my God, just dealing with the bureaucracy of getting everything licensed and everything. Running any business is hard, but anything that's medical, it's really, really tough. So, I had, and my husband got a job in Olympia, and we moved there, and I worked for Providence mostly. So I kept in touch with my friends down at Harvard, though. Anyway, so this is a good story too. So I saw it, and then Dee retired. She sold the business. She was a little older, and she retired too. And I taught her writer's work. I write poetry too. That's been another lifelong hobby I really enjoy. And I was teaching although I was working in hospice, I still kept in touch with libraries, and I taught some writing programs. So I was at the Elma Library teaching a writing class, and Dee showed up, and she told me one thing that she was doing. And every time she was writing children's books, and it was so fun to see her, and we connected. But she also told me that she'd been diagnosed with cancer. She was in treatment, and then she did pass away. So that was sad. So, okay, so bring us to last year. Last year, and if she's listening, my friend won't care if I worked with a nurse there that I was very close to, my friend Sherry, and we were both the Queen of Hearts. And my grandma used to tell with cards, you would pick out who you were. And so if you're a woman, you were one of the queens, and if you were a man, you're one of the kings or the jacks. And I was always the Queen of Hearts. Well, my friend Sherry actually could tell fortunes too, and she was also the Queen of Hearts. So we had bonded over that. And she had gotten married, actually remarried, and they had retired to Squim. So we've seen each other a few times since we've been up here.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband died very, very suddenly from a heart attack in May 2020.
Okay.
They were sitting on the Davenport watching a movie, and she thought he'd fallen asleep, and he hadn't fallen asleep. That is a really tough kind of death because you don't get to say goodbye. And of course, we was trying anyway. And so we had talked off and on too. And come the fall, last fall, she hadn't heard from him. And she was a very spiritual person, as was he.
Mm-hmm.
But she hadn't heard from him at all. And that really bothered her. And I said, well, some spirits, when they die, it takes them a while to settle on the other side. He doesn't, especially people ones that die fast like that. He doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what hit him. He maybe doesn't even know he's dead for a while. Really, truly, that happens,
Yeah.
And so I said, so he can't talk to you now because he's too busy figuring out himself. Mm-hmm. And then it takes a while for spirits to learn how to communicate. They don't have the same kind of voice they used to have, or even the same kind of access. And sometimes people are so overwhelmed by grief, they shut down. And so there's a lot of reasons. So I talked. But anyway, so one day I'm sitting and I have a little meditation room on the other side of the house. And I try to meditate every morning. And so I'm meditating in my meditation room. And who comes through to me? I mean, vividly, like she was in the room. I'm not kidding you. Was Dee, my old boss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. And I could see, I mean, it was one of the most vivid visions, I guess you'd say, that I'd had for a long time. Oh my God, Dee, how are you doing? And she said, I'm doing really well. I'm doing good work over on the other side and stuff. But the reason I'm here is because I have a message from Ed to Sherry. I said, wow. And he said, yeah. And she said, Eddie had a little hard time crossing over, hard time getting adjusted over here, but he's doing really well. He's wonderfully happy. He's gone part of light, part of spirit. And Ed was a really nice guy. He had a lot of fun. Everybody likes Ed. And I said, and you need to tell Sherry that he thinks about her all the time. He still loves her so much. And when he can, he'll come through.
Oh.
So I immediately called Sherry up and told her what had happened. And Sherry, to be honest, Dee, didn't get along with Dee as well as I did.
Maybe that's why she came to you.
I was okay. And but Sherry had been a nurse a lot longer than I had to be fair. But okay. I said, Dee told you that? And I said, yeah, our Dee, yeah. And she's talking to Eddie, and so that made Sherry feel way better, of course. And since then Dee came back to me a couple of days later and said, I will help you. I'll help you over here. I'd always had guides that I could reach out to and talk to, but I never had any spirit come through and say, yeah, I'll help you. If you want to talk to a spirit, I'll see if I can find him. I'll see if I can help facilitate this. And she has. So I've had her for just about a year now. And it's been amazing. It's been so much easier.
That is so cool.
That is totally cool. That is totally amazing and wonderful. And she offered herself to me. I never would have thought to ask her. The teacher that I had the year my dad died is one of my guides. And I talked to her a lot, but I asked her and I found her. And, and some of them, I have my great grandfather and stuff like that. But Dee said she came to me. Dee's whole life was service. And I think her life on the other side is service as well.
I totally think there's so many aspects of yourself that you do carry on the other side. Personality is the biggest.
Like I said, everybody liked Ed here. They're all going to like him over there.
Yeah, exactly. I talk about that a lot. On my ghost tour that I do here in Port Gamble, that on a lot of the TV shows anymore, it's not all of them, but some of them, if there's a negative sort of report of activity or a negative personal experience, it's a demon, but I'm usually like, well, maybe take a step back here and think about, it's probably someone who was a jerk when they were living.
That's right.
And now they've just kind of carried that on. So I would totally agree with you that because she was so helpful and her life was about helping others, she's carried that on, and she's probably, I don't think recruited is the right word, but on the other side, she may have naturally gone to the group or whoever it is that kind of they're more into helping people, because I think there's guides for us.
Yes.
And then there's guides for people on the other side too.
Oh,
to
yeah.
help them get adjusted. And some do both. Some do both. But
Right.
it's like somebody grabbed her and was like, "You help people all your life? Well, here you go. What do you think about this?" "Oh, cool. I'll do it."
Yes, yes. Well, and like I used to, a lot of times people wouldn't die until they were alone. Okay, like in hospice, people would have sat vigil for 2 weeks, and they go to the bathroom and they come back and their loved one is gone, or they fall asleep, or they go get a hamburger, or they wash their hair, and oh my God, they're so guilty. Oh my God, I should have been here. No. A lot of times people are so connected with people in this life, they can't cross over until they're by themselves. But I always tell them, nobody dies alone. I'm 100% sure of this. Nobody. People from the other side come and get people, and I've seen it time and again, and I've had it reported time and again. Somebody comes. Somebody comes. Even to wretched people, somebody comes.
Well, yeah, somebody will come, because we've all got help. I'll share with you an experience I had. This was a few years ago. And well, my grandfather, he had passed away in the 90s, and my grandma was left behind, and they were so in love with each other, and it's just a beautiful relationship. And I always kind of knew, even I didn't discover my psychic journey until Oh, am I back?
You're back.
I'm back.
Went into that state, right?
Yeah. Whoa, trance. But before discovering my psychic journey 8-9 years ago, I always kind of felt my grandpa would wait for her. I just kind of always, anybody who knew him would probably say that he would wait for her. And well, a few years ago when she passed, it was that time. It was, getting towards the end for her, and so some family was there with her, very almost all the time towards the end. But just one day randomly, I'm walking through my dining room here in Port Gamble, and I just was like slapped in the face with this vision of, I saw my grandpa's hand, and I knew it was him because he would wear turquoise sometimes, like jewelry. They spent many years in Sedona, Arizona.
Wow.
And so I saw his hand, and then I saw her hand, and it was almost like I put their hands together.
Oh.
And then a big light opened up, and like a blinding light, and I just saw their silhouettes go into this light. And it must have been within 3 to 5 minutes, I got a call from my dad saying that my grandma had just passed away.
Wow.
And I said,
wow.
I know. But it was, I knew he was waiting for her. I knew he was. And it was just such a neat experience. I mean, it was just like you know, not like the universe used me, not like that sort of situation, but it was,
But you saw that.
yeah, it was one of my former guests, Karen Fraser, said the universal 2x4 upside the head. And it was like one of those sort of things. And so, yeah, I mean, I totally believe that there's somebody there for you, you know, no matter who you are, because there's somebody in your soul group that will be around. And you know, let's talk spirit guides a little bit, because I know you've done workshops and you teach people how to get in touch with their spirit guides or guardian angels, however you want to look at it. You know, it's always a challenge for me to know all of mine because I think there's quite a few.
Yes.
And but I don't know that it doesn't seem like the right time, but you know, where I'm going to really know who they are. I have an idea of who they are. I think some of them are not on this planet. I
Right.
think some of them are from somewhere else in the galaxy, universe, whatever. But what are some things that you teach, or let me rephrase that. What are some things that you believe everyone can do
to get to know their spirit guides?
Yeah, or just with psychically, you know, because I think that comes with it. You know, what are some things you think everybody can do?
Well, how should I say? The first thing is to admit that you can do it. People have psychic experience all the time, and they think, "Oh no, that was the wind, or that was blah blah." They rationalize it away.
Right.
I always encourage journaling. A lot of, even if you don't like to write, you get this notebook, and you don't have to write complete sentences. Certainly don't have to write every day. But when something really weird happens to you, you find 3 feathers in a row. You know, there was a wind when there wasn't any. One branch was moving when, you know, you write it down. You write it down, and after a while, you're going to start to see patterns, and you're going to start to see a lot of repetitions, and you'll know that, you know, when you see one branch moving and everything else is clear, that your grandfather or your childhood friend who died in a car accident or whatever it is. And a lot of times it's funny little things that are associated with people that have crossed over that come back, like the green shoes or other little things. It'll be, everybody expects a huge revelation, you know, about what. Okay, I'll tell one more little story. It's a personal story.
Oh, of course.
I tell this to people all the time. I had a very profound experience at the time of my mother's death. And she was a very spiritual lady. So I expected to hear from her after she died. I expected her to tell me what it was like on the other side. You know, nothing. I heard nothing for about 3 or 4 years. Okay. Then one day, a store is going out of business, a clothing store. And I go in and everything's half price. And so I decide I'm wearing black and orange because it's Halloween, but I almost always wear blue. I have this thing for the color blue. Okay, so I decided I really didn't need a lot of clothes, but there were a bunch of t-shirts. And so I decided, well, I'm going to buy a t-shirt. But you couldn't take them back. So I thought, well, I better try them on. So I picked up a stack of t-shirts. Most of them were blue. I had a red one and a green one in there. So I go into the fitting room by myself and I try on the t-shirts. Pretty much they all fit. So I picked out a navy one and a turquoise one, right? And so I'm there all by myself. So big and loud, my mother's voice says, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, buy the red one." And it's like my mother, she always said, "Oh, for heaven's sakes." And then she always wore bright colors. And I'm always in my kind of little navy blue thing going on there. And so did she tell me what it was like on the other side or the meaning or nope. She told me I should buy the red shirt. So I bought the red shirt.
She was tired of watching you try them on. She's like, "We got to go.
Yeah,
there's places to go."
You know, and so a couple times she was kind of a practical person too. So I tell people, you know, a lot of times when you hear messages, it isn't always the meaning of life or a deep message for someone. Sometimes it's just a funny thing, and they just want you to know they're there.
Exactly.
Or else they want you to lighten up or something like that. So first of all, do that. And then, of course, you can simply ask people. Think of people that you really admired in life or felt close to, like teachers or how should I say? Close relatives are dicey. I wouldn't really No offense, mother. My mother will tell me stuff anywhere, or my dad. But my very close relatives don't need to be my spirit guides. I kind of already know what they think and can tell me. Sometimes you need spirit guides that are going to push you a little bit or force you, or will have expertise that you didn't have, or like that. So you're welcome to ask somebody to be your spirit guide.
Yeah, and so what do you think about this? One thing I've told clients, and at least it helps with me, so I know it works for me. Maybe it'll work for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to contact someone, or if you're trying to ask somebody to be spirit guide, if it was somebody you knew, right, that was a part of your life in some way, I always tell people, like, when you're thinking about this person, hear their laugh. Like, don't just hear their laugh. Hear it. You know what I mean? You listen to it.
That's a really good thing.
Hear it in your mind, and I think that's like a shortcut. It's almost like a shortcut to now there's no way to scientifically prove this, we just know it. but I think that, like, that's such a shortcut, because it's something positive, that you can connect with this person, and that you don't have to be saying anything out loud. But if you hear their laugh and really hear their laugh, then the next thing is, what did their hug feel like?
The loving, comforting. Yes.
Remember, bring up those memories physically, and then I think you're connected. You're
connected.
I think it kind of works that way, and it's a lot more complex than that. But
no, but that's a really excellent thing. The physiologic connection. Yes, your body remembers.
And if at the very least you're putting yourself in that moment, not thinking about anything else, and you're focused on that part of your memory, and it'll help you with your visualization to be in the focused place to have somebody come through. So, I mean, I just wanted to ask you what you thought about that, because to me, it makes sense. And I've kind of been seeing that more lately. Like, oh yeah, that's because I have a problem with trying too hard.
Oh God, yes. I think that's everybody. It doesn't work.
Right.
You back away and back off. Yes.
Yeah, you tend to try really hard, and so then it's like, no. Just think about it as if that person is here. You remember what this person's laugh was like. You remember, if it's a loved one, you remember what their hug feels like. And so I think it's a shortcut to that. We're going to take a quick station break, and when we come back, I'm going to finally let Joanne do my palmistry reading. And we're here on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea. We're on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. I think it's about to get really interesting. I'm kind of anxious about it, but we'll be right back here with Joanne the Psychic, Joanne Clarkson. See you in a second.
Looking to launch your new masterpiece? Then try something new with Moonbow Publishing and Publications. At Moonbow, we have a strong desire to serve authors in a powerful and meaningful way. After all, you've poured your heart and soul into your writing, and we fully understand and respect that. Remember this: you will own the copyright to your work. You will have the final say on your work before published. Even after all of that, we've saved the best for last. We won't take a percentage sold. Nope, not a penny. Excited about MoonbowPublications.com yet? We thought so. Take advantage of our company's services like book editing, formatting, and covers, publishing, and photography. Moonbow Publishing and Publications has everything you're looking for in a company. Remember, we will not keep any commissions. We are a boutique publishing company focusing on spiritual, health and wellness, and personal growth genres. So come and see what we can do for you at MoonbowPublications.com. That's MoonbowPublications.com. Moonbow Publications, a new kind of publishing company.
Okay, welcome back. We're on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Peter Orbea. We're on WLTK-DB.com. Take a second, go through the website, check out all the shows on the station. There's a lot of great content throughout the week. So your weeknights are filled with interesting information right there on Let's Talk Radio. And tonight we've got special guests, Joanne Clarkson, Joanne the Psychic. Go to joannethePsychic.com. And so she had me take pictures of my palms and send them over to her. And one thing that I thought was interesting, Joanne, was you had asked for a closer up picture of one of my hands. And then you did let me know that it does really matter if you're right-handed or left-handed in a palmistry reading.
I was going to just explain generally how I do it.
Yeah, please do. I was going to ask, why is that? But go ahead. Yeah.
Your non-dominant hand is what you were born with, your potential, and your dominant hand is how you've expressed it. So you can see, it is very cool. And some people's hands are really different, and some people's hands are more or less the same. Yours aren't radically different, but there are some points there that show interesting progressions and whatnot. When you read palms, I've known other hand readers, palm readers. You read the shape of the palm, the shape of the hand, you read the thumb, you read the fingers, and then you read the lines on the palm. So it's an entire process. And of course, it's very best if I can sit with someone and actually touch their hands and hold their hands and look at it up close. But especially through COVID and stuff, since you can't do that, I do most of my readings on Zoom or sometimes FaceTime or just over the phone. And then they can take pictures of their hands and send them to my email or text them to me. And that's just fine. And actually, sometimes you can kind of really zero in on people's hands and see so just in general, a lot of palmists think your thumb is your most important thing. Your thumb is the tip of your thumb is your willpower, then your judgment, and then this is your Mount of Venus, your life force energy. And then this is your, I'll go through this again. Your Jupiter finger is your leadership. This is your spirituality. This is your connection to art and creativity. And the little finger is business, it's communication, and it's advocacy. Then you get the lifeline, the line of reason, the heart line, and then the fate line. But so there's a whole lot. You could read palms for an hour easily. But okay. I have the pictures of your palms. I put them down here so I could see them. So we're going to start with your left hand because your left hand is you're right-handed, yeah? Okay.
I am right-handed, yes.
So I'm looking at your hand, so you can probably just still see me. But okay,
yes.
So looking at your thumb, you can see that you have a very pointed thumb, right?
Yep.
And people everyone's prejudice. I like people with pointy thumbs. People with pointy thumbs tend to be people that work better with a goal. They're and you definitely are a goal-oriented person. You can be quite determined, but you got to know where you're going. You don't like to not know where you're going. And with that, you can plow through. You're not a domineering person. You're not someone that has to be right. In fact, you're very good at entertaining all sorts of different possibilities. Yeah. Your middle phalange there is your judgment. And your judgment is pretty good, but you tend to overthink things a lot.
Yes.
and that's fine. That's fine. But, and eventually you do take action. But you're a thinker. And then at the base of the palm, your Mount of Venus, you have a lot of life force energy, a great deal of passion, courage. We'll leave that at that for now. And we'll talk a little bit more when we do your lifeline. But you are a very passionate person. You're not passive. If you're bored, you go and do something else. Just a person that really, really enjoys life. And that's really cool.
Thanks.
Yes, your first finger there. This one, your Jupiter finger, is always your leadership finger.
Okay.
And, I'll tell you what, one thing, the first thing, I always try to, when I see people's hands, I always try to get a first impression. And my first impression of your hand, all told, was this guy is a born leader. I bet you wouldn't have thought that yourself, would you?
No.
Because you're not. No, because you're not domineering. Thumbs. There are people with thumbs that have this big ball at the end, or this huge tip, or that's um, my way or the highway. I'm always right. You don't have that at all. Not
Okay.
at all. And the fact that the tip of your finger is curved, you're a cooperator. You're a person that really genuinely likes to see other people succeed.
Yeah.
Kind of in this life sometimes, yes. But that's a long finger. Most people, obviously, most people's middle finger is the longest one, but compared to most hands, you have a long first finger. You're a very, very good independent worker.
Yes.
You know, and that's your comfort zone, actually. And you don't have to be right, but you do have these leadership skills, and I think it's because you have these very strange things that you believe in and stuff. But you lead by example. You lead by providing opportunities, that kind of thing. The middle finger. This is all his potential too. This is how you were born. Like your other hand isn't radically different, but that's true. Your middle finger is your spirituality. It's your Saturn finger, and it's an interesting finger. It's almost the three parts of your finger are almost equal. You're good at design and organization. That's what the middle part says. The top says that you're a lifelong learner. And the fact that your fingertip sticks out a little bit says that you're never satisfied with pat answers. You always want to know more. Questioning attitude, love to learn, lifelong learner. The next finger is your Apollo finger. You're a very creative person. You love beauty, and it's got a star at the bottom. We'll see that when we get into I wish I could show these. I should have a slide of these, but we can kind of see that.
Okay. You're talking about like right in here?
Yes. At the base of that, you have a very, very distinct star.
Okay.
I think you're not a graphic artist, though. I think you're a writer. Or at least, well, obviously you have this radio show, but you've got a musician.
Yep.
That too. Yeah, when you have the long in the middle, it's something that music is very organized. It's a good organizational thing.
Yeah.
and then the little finger, I can't.
I know. I keep doing that too.
The little finger there shows you're a great advocate for others. You're generous. You probably wouldn't do anything just for money. Not that you're stupid about money, but it's not your goal usually. That's not why you do something necessarily.
Right. I would agree with that.
Your hand is pretty much square. Your palm is bigger than your fingers, when you at least a little bit. It shows you're an active person. Like I said, you're not a person that likes to sit around. You might sit around with what do you play? Do you?
I play bass, and that's my main instrument. But I've always been blessed with being able to pick up any instrument and at least play something on it.
Well, that's that beautiful star. Actually, you have it on your right hand too. The star. It's more. I think it's a bigger star on your left hand, at least when I looked at it. But on the right hand, you've got it too. When we look at your the shape of your hands, your right hand is similar in shape, but you were much shyer when you were younger. You're more outgoing now, and you've kind of you're okay with your leader, with doing your own thing, with being a leader in what you need to lead. It's taken you a while to get there, but you're good at it now.
Thank you. I feel like I'm very much learning a lot.
Well, we all learn a lot, but you're where you're supposed to be. When we look at the lines and markings on your hand, your left hand, the line that goes around your around your thumb is your lifeline.
Okay.
On your left hand, it's a good strong line. I think you've always had someone in your life that loved you. I think that home is the fact that the line goes way over around the thumb, it doesn't go to the middle of the palm. Home is very important to you, having some sort of a home base.
Yes.
How will I say this on there? I can tell that you're married because you have a ring on your finger. Okay.
Yes.
But you're not how should I say, human connection is very, very important to you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so is touch. Physical things are very important to you. You're kind of a physical type person, and that's a gift that you have. Like you talked about hugging and laughter, and that's really important, and it's very obvious in your hand. You also have, as you can see, inside your lifeline, you have kind of a little companion line there.
Yeah.
And that is a sign of spirit guides. You can kind of see it there. Yeah. It's a sign that you've always had some sort of a guide or a spirit there, no matter what. And that person, sometimes your line isn't broken. If people have a very broken line, it's indication that something bad happened to them or younger. That line is probably someone real, like a grandparent that maybe has, and that may be true for you too, a little bit, has kind of stepped in to give you confidence and love and security when you were younger. Mm-hmm. But it can also be someone on the other side.
Okay.
Okay. So where'd it go again? Okay. Back on the left one. Okay. As you can see, your middle line there, is your line of reason, and it's really cool because it has a good slope to it. If it goes straight across, somebody's an accountant or something. It kind of slopes down. The bottom of your palm is your mountain of the moon. That's where your creativity and intuition come from, and that's where the line points. So although you certainly can organize things and do things well, kind of your intuition and your creativity rules your logic, actually.
Yes, I would completely agree with that.
And your top line there, it's your deepest line is your heart line. And so your heart, you have a very, very loving heart. And as you can see, it ends between your first and second fingers, which means that you believe in love as a thing in itself. Love is important. You're idealistic about love. And that's very cool.
Yeah.
When we move to your right hand, like I said, there aren't huge differences. It certainly is a more confident hand. And then you have that, and you really have expressed your artistic capabilities. There are two things that are really interesting in your right hand that I didn't see in your left. You don't have a real strong, a lot of people don't have a fate line. That's a line that goes straight up the middle of their hand. You have, let's see, actually you have one kind of coming off the moon on your left hand. So whatever you can kind of see a line going, but it starts kind of at the bottom at the base down there. So your true fate does come out of your moon sense or your intuitive sense. On your right hand, you have parallel fate lines, which means you will probably, and as many creative people do, you have this wonderful creative life or other life, and you have the practical life, and you're always going to be doing them side by side. I know.
Okay.
I know. We like to be, but you also have the thing I was looking at when I wanted you to send me just your right palm. As you can see, how can I make you see this? Well, the line in your middle line there, your line of reason, goes across and kind of slopes, and there's kind of a little fork coming off there, and kind of between those two are kind of little tiny lines there. It's almost like kind of like a straight fingerprint or a grid, but they all go one way.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it or not. It's right.
Is it right here?
A little farther down. It's right. My right hand there. It's kind of like right here. Yeah, it's kind of down a little bit. You can see.
I see. I see right there.
That is a psychic sign. It's a psychic bee, they call it, because sometimes it has a little sort of like a bumblebee. Yours just has that line, but that is a very, very rare sign. If you have that, I don't know if you can't probably see his well enough. If it's a little, we can't get it clear enough. So if people have something that looks kind of like a fingerprint or just a bunch of real little lines close together, sometimes it almost looks like a callus, but it isn't a callus, and it's down there by the moon, or that literally is a psychic sign. And I've seen maybe 20 in my whole life. I'm not kidding you. That's a very, very, very rare thing.
Cool.
I saw one. It was really weird. I was going to do another program for somebody, and I've taken a couple of pictures of those, and I have slides when I give programs in person. And I had one of these, and so I wanted to contrast somebody that was psychic and creative with somebody that was more of a working person. We were having a deck built, okay? And so I went outside with my camera, and this guy was out there, and I said, "Can I take a picture of your palm?" And he kind of like says, "Okay."
Okay, lady.
So and the weirdest thing on his Mount of Venus here was a perfect one of those psychic signs. I thought, what the hell? I'm looking at this guy's palm, and I said, you know, I bet when you build something, you can totally see it in your head, right? You probably don't even need a plan, but you can visualize this whole deck and know exactly what to do. And he says, yeah, that's how I always work. It's I never work in plans. I just see something. If I want to build a chair, I see a chair. But this guy had this deep intuitive craftsmanship in his hand. It would just like blew me away. Took a picture
Wow.
of him too. What a cool guy. So you must never judge people.
Yes.
Because this guy never talked either. The other guy that was with him talked all day, wasn't getting much work done. But that guy was just there building and visualizing my whole deck in his head. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So like I said, there was one other important thing I wanted to tell. Oh, the other really, really cool thing that's really weird, and it'll convince you that I have seen very few of these too. Okay, let me. On your right hand, your lifeline doesn't end at the side of your hand. It goes across and ends under Jupiter. It does. It crosses.
Yeah.
That's really, really weird.
Okay.
And that means though your life purpose is to be a leader. And I think a leader, an innovative leader for you. You really truly are supposed to be doing this stuff.
Okay. Well, I mean thank you for that, because I have struggled with confidence with it, and it's can be a challenge, which I know it is for so many, but I mean, that's cool. That makes me feel a little bit better. About
So you don't have domineering thumbs. You don't have to be in charge, but that's better. You don't want someone who's going to tell everybody what to do all the time. No one wants a bossy pants.
Yeah.
And then a way to gain confidence. I know it's a way that I have gained confidence. Again, is that goal setting thing. You have a goal that you really want people to know that the other side is real. They want you to know that you want people to know that ghosts exist. You want people to know that there's this whole universe that and not only that, but that we can be part of it and we can connect with it. So once you get that goal in your head, you can do this wonderful radio show. You can lead these amazing tours. You can organize this whole festival. You can do that. That's a huge leadership thing. And that's very risky in stepping out there. What if it doesn't succeed? What if everybody thinks I'm a fool? What if they think I'm nuts? What if I am nuts?
Exactly.
But not only not, but then you do have that psychic sign on your hand. I'll tell you, it's also way more common on your left hand than your right hand. Most of the people are born with it, don't quite develop it. But you've worked on this all your life. It isn't something that you necessarily had, even like I had as a child. It's something you've had later on that you've really worked to develop, and you're still working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as far as growing up goes, um, I grew up in a household where science fiction was, the big thing. And so I always had, a space to be open-minded, but I wasn't necessarily, I was not aware or cognizant or had any recognition of why I kept imagining people and like, well, who's that? I never met that person before, but their name is Dan. I just thought it was my imagination, and of course later in life, it wasn't until my 30s where I really got slapped in the head by the universal 2x4, and then was like, whoa, then I could look back on my life and go, okay, maybe that's what this was, maybe that's what this was.
Yes.
And so gosh, well, I guess about 8-9 years ago is when I was like, whoa, okay, well, I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
It is what you're supposed to do. So when you ever don't have confidence, you just look at how your lifeline crosses over onto Jupiter, and you've got your psychic sign, and you've always got that deep, wonderful heart. You do it because it's what your heart tells you, and because it's a loving thing to do.
Yeah. Wow. That is Really cool. And no, I thank you for explaining it too, as far as like the different fingers and everything. I wonder how many people watching or listening, if you're going to be catching this, the replay, the syndication of this, how many people are looking at their hands right now?
Yes, yes. I have a cousin who she grew up with everybody telling fortunes and stuff too, and she's obviously the most successful one, certainly the richest one. But she wanted to this day, if we have a luncheon or something like that, she goes like this. She will not let me see her hand. I don't know what she's terrified. I'll see
Oh,
that.
that's awesome. Hey, we got a question here from Boris, and I think that's our friend in Germany. Hey, Boris, how you doing? When you read someone's palms, is it only about the things you see in the palms, lines, and so on, or is there also intuition involved?
There's certainly intuition involved, and how should I say? Although I use the lines and the shape as a guide, usually the universe tells me what to tell the people. Because you can't tell them everything, especially if I'm doing a fortune in a half hour or something. I read down the Phoenix Rising, you got to be done in a half hour, and stuff like that. So yeah, then sometimes when I actually touch people's hands, you can see things and feel things.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So no, there's a huge intuitive, and also sometimes I sense that I see things in there, and people don't really want me to know or don't want me to say, and so I don't.
Yeah. You know what's I find I always get a laugh. So I'll get shown objects in a mediumship reading, and a lot of times it'll either be a photo of this object, or I'll just have the mental image. Or what I mean by photo is this object is in a photo, and they're showing me the photo with it in there. And I can't tell you how many old timer guys show me their old freaking tackle box.
Oh, how cute is that? Oh, that's darling.
And they're just so proud of it. you know?
Oh, that's a wonderful thing, Imogen.
Yeah. So, it's seeing an object, and then you get the
Right. And so,
intuitive part of it. Like, okay,
yes,
well, they're wanting me to see this for some reason. Yeah.
yeah, that too. When we were talking about spirit guides too, I was thinking the one thing I didn't say, not all our spirit guides are someone that we know. I've known
Right.
my guardian angel for many years, and my guardian angel that I named Lucian when I was a child even is simply a white light over my right shoulder. And sometimes it's there more brightly and sometimes it isn't. And that's just an angel. And then I had Howard Beatty is a great guy. Lived down in Chehalis. He's still around. He had a stroke, so he's not doing. He was a hypnotherapist, but also a psychic, and he hypnotized a number of us to see if we could make contact with aliens. That was really fun.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and first he has a book about it. I can't think of the name of it. I should, but the first couple of times he focused us in different parts of the universe. There are three of us that participated in this, and the first two I got really not very vague. Not the third time I did it though. That's the only time I really felt like a spirit took possession of my body. My voice changed and everything. And when you're hypnotized, it isn't like you'd run naked on a stage or anything. You're still kind of conscious of your environment. And when that happened to me, he said, "Is Joanne all right? Does Joanne need to come back?" And I said, "No, I'm okay." But this being was when they did the Pleiades. She told me her name. She told me why she was interested in nurse. She told me why she came here. And since then, several times I've encountered this being at various times, usually she asked me a question about something on Earth. One time I
Interesting.
was walking in the woods and she was really interested in Earth because the Earth feeds its people. It feeds its people. I'm just really interested in the vegetation and vegetation will eat. And sometimes I was walking along and all of a sudden I sensed this being there. And she says, "I don't understand taste. Will you explain to me what taste is?" And so
How do you do that?
I did it. I told her about the tongue, and I know the different places in the tongue, and I know physiologically how the tongue is made and how it connects. And so I said that, and it's like you don't want to something very bitter. You probably don't want to eat. It might be poison, things like that, and then things that appeal to us, and some things are acquired. Anyway, so we had this discussion about what taste is. So anyway, so you can have spirit guides, and you can invite spirit guides. You can even sit there and concentrate on the Pleiades and see if anything comes through.
Yeah, I've been told by other people that there's a connection with Palladians with me, and
We both have Palladian friends.
yeah. Well, I mean, since a kid, I've had a recurring dream of these four beings. Sometimes it's three, but most of the time it's four of them. And I've never gotten a detailed look at them because they're hooded. They have hoods on and stuff. But they've been around me as long as I can remember, at least in my dreams. But now I realize it's in a different capacity.
But that's another way. It's another thing I didn't say, that I tell people. Like, dreams are really powerful. A lot of times you do dream about your guides, and you can tell the difference between a dream that's a dream and a dream that's I call them dream-vision. And in the dream visions is where sometimes people like that come through. And another reason we can't obviously sometimes see these people like we see each other is because our brains don't have the little compartments that can process what they look like,
Sure.
or how they're made, how they're put together as far as physical elements, I guess you'd say.
Right.
So that's why we see them as light, or we see them as kind of shapes or like that. Yeah. That's fascinating. That dream stuff is real powerful.
It really is. And it's like, you always hear write down, if you wake up, write down.
Write it down.
It's like, gosh, I got to keep a pen and notepad like duct tape to my back or something so I can pull it off.
I have one in the bathroom, so I don't wake up Jim in the middle of the night to write. I go in the bathroom and turn on the light and write things down I do that.
That's cool. Yeah.
And sometimes it's a year and I get nothing. And then you do, and you get a bunch in a row or something, or you get
right
ones. Yeah.
A while ago, you'd mentioned about, one thing that you could teach people, journaling, writing something down. How long would you recommend people to write stuff down? Is it a month and then take a look and see if there's patterns, or is it 2 weeks, or, kind of what do you generally recommend for people if they're going to start journaling experiences?
It depends how much they're receiving. I will say too, a lot of people don't like to write or think they don't like to write. You do. Do you write? You have a writer's fork too. I didn't mention that.
I like to write, but if you can read my handwriting, kudos to you.
Well, you can even use dictation programs. There's a lot of things you get the thing down. I don't care whether you write it, type it, dictate it, whatever.
Yeah, I write newspaper articles and newsletters and stuff like that.
Good. But anyway, back to your initial question. How should I say? You write things down when they're important, when you have a dream, when you see stuff, when you feel called to put it down. And sometimes when you think you're going to write one word, and as you write, you remember. I found that I remembered dreams I didn't know I remembered once I started writing them down. It gives me more and more things came. So writing can be helpful that way too, or dictating if you don't like to write. So get Dragon or something and dictate.
Yeah.
And then look back when you feel like it. I had this friend that kept seeing feathers and thought her mother was talking to her through white feathers specifically. Okay. But she hadn't kept track of them. I said, okay, every time you see a white feather, write down where you see it, when you see it, and date it, and we'll see if we can track this. And she saw way more white feathers than she even realized.
Oh, wow.
And I think where she saw them was important too. And I do think her mother was talking to her with white feathers. She wasn't wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a real interesting mother. I knew her mother too, so that was a good thing to pick. But yeah, so just keeping track of things, and like I said, dreams and even experiences fade so fast. Life is so busy, and things override. Sure, and it's very delicate, the things that you see with this intuitive sense. But you can, but a lot of people, like you said, when the universe hit you over the head with a 2x4, I've had moments like that. We've all had those moments, really. And that kind of opens you up. Once you've seen something like that, you can't not see it, and you start seeing it more and more, especially if you admit it.
Yeah, totally 100% agree with you on that. It's about once you recognize it. Mm-hmm. my very first, well, it probably wasn't my first, but the first time that I saw a spirit that in my adult life, that I saw something that I was like thinking that's a ghost. It was at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and my good friend William Becker was speaking, and there was our projector screen was down, and so there's a white background, and I kept seeing this shadow in this kind of top hat sort of thing, or like just an old school looking hat, and it was kind of going, walking around behind him independently of how he was moving, and it would kind of swell out into like a cloud, and then it would come back down into this shape of a man. And so I went to talk to him afterwards to say, that I think I saw this. I'm not sure what it was. And as I walked up to tell him, another gentleman was already talking to him, his good friend Neil McNeil. And he was talking to him and explaining and basically describing what he saw, which was exactly what I saw. And then he said, one of the things that has stuck with me since then is, now you've seen it, now recognize it.
Yes.
Start recognizing it and then use it. And his words, that just has always stuck with me. And so I try and pass that along to people too, is once you have that experience where you're like, or you can get some validation on what your experience was, how did that feel? Now you can recognize it next time it happens, so that next time you pay attention. And I think that's super important. The recognition and then using it.
Yeah.
Take it another step farther. But, hey, so we're coming up on the end here, and I told you before the show, it's just going to fly by, and it did. I want to make sure that people know if you've got any events coming up, if you've got anything coming up that you want to get out there, and if you don't have anything coming up, the best way to get a hold of you.
My information is all on my website. I read it. We have a wonderful metaphysical bookstore and shop down in Port Townsend called Phoenix Rising, and I read there at least one weekend a month. And so it's really fun to come in and buy yourself a new deck of tarot cards and a beautiful stone and have a psychic reading. And then I'm available for personal readings too. And if you're not in Port Townsend, we can do them on Zoom or other ways, and that's good. And then parties and events too.
Yeah,
we're having a number of those. That's fun to have a psychic at your party.
Right. I've been to and done a couple of small group readings like that, and you just never know who's going to come through, and and that's why I love doing that stuff. But I'll have to come see you over at Phoenix Rising sometime.
Please, or just call us up. And my husband's Hildy's going to be on your show too. He researches UFOs.
I can't wait to talk to him about that stuff. I'm literally looking forward to that. But I got to tell you, for everybody listening out there, I thank you for the palmistry reading, because I think it was enlightening for me in a lot of ways. And the fact that the big thing was that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I thank you for that very much. It means a lot. So I'm very grateful for that and appreciate it. And I hope some people reach out for some readings. Our good friend and new producer of this show, Mike Beer, says he got a palm reading from you and it was spot on.
Oh, he's an amazing person. Hi, Mike.
Yeah. And Boris, thanks for listening. Says thank you. Very interesting. Well, thank you for listening. And Christina Bloom, I love Phoenix Rising.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. So go, set an appointment with Joanne out there if you want a interesting and accurate reading, and just, I'm very grateful for it. I just want to convey thank you so much for.
Well, thank you for allowing me to do that.
Yeah. Well, you never know. It's like, oh, what's she gonna say? But I kind of understand it a little bit more now, the way you were kind of explaining it. And I hope people listening too, that as you were looking at your hands while Joanne's talking, that, you kind of could start recognizing some things. And it is very enlightening. And I'll have to have you back on sometime. Yeah, I think it would be, we'll just continue to have lots of fun. And, thank you for supporting the show and being a guest.
Oh, I loved it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And I just want to give a quick shout out again to Mike Beers, the producer for the show. He's really helping me out, and amazing guy, and really honored to be working with him. And then so next week I've got Paul Graves coming on the show, and he's a musician, and I think we're going to be talking music and weird stuff and how maybe that ties in together. And we'll also be talking about some of his Sasquatch evidence and Sasquatch experiences, and not only just with Sasquatch, but other things that he's experienced too. So he believe he lives in a haunted house. So it's always fun to talk to somebody who lives in a house with a haunting going on. So that's next week. And then the week after that, I've got cryptozoologist Ken Gerhard coming on the show. That's going to be a lot of fun. He's been all over the place, and I can't wait to hear some of his stories. And then the week after that, November 16th, I've got the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen, some of my very best friends in the paranormal field and just great guys in general. They're going to be coming on. We're going to be doing a one year anniversary special. I've had all these guys on the show, minus one because he's just super busy and out fighting fires. But I'm glad to get all those guys together and come on the show. So we've got a lot of great shows lined up for you coming up. So be sure you stay tuned every Tuesday night. And Joanne, I leave every show with a toast to that I hope people heed at some point. If I say it enough times, somebody will heed it, that the past is history and the future is a mystery, but today's a gift because it's the present, and that we need to take time each day to be present wherever you're at. Don't think about yesterday. Quit thinking about tomorrow. Just be in the moment. Take stock in what you got. Hug everyone around you and hug everyone else virtually for a while longer. And we'll see everybody next week. Special thanks to Joanne, the psychic, Joanne Clarkson, for coming on the show tonight. Had such a wonderful time. We'll see everybody next week on the Paranormal Pete Show, WLTK-DB.com. Take care.